Hi, I'm Johnny, this is Bad Weather Barbecue, and today we're cooking pulled pork on the Weber kettle. Hi everyone, welcome to Bad Weather Barbecue. This is a channel where we talk all things barbecue, and today we're doing one of my most requested cooks, which is pulled pork. Before we get cracking today, I just wanted to say I've been having a lot of fun interacting with you guys in the comment sections of my videos of late. So please keep the comments coming. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see in future. As a reminder, you can now find Bad Weather Barbecue on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So please go and hit me up on that, where you'll get updates on all of my future cooks. Pulled pork is very much a favourite of mine to have, and the way I traditionally serve that is on a toasted brioche bun with all the trimmings. Today, however, my wife's asked if we can do something slightly different for her. So what we're going to be doing is serving her pulled pork on a rocket and pomegranate salad with garlic aioli. So as you can see, we're in the kitchen now and it's time to prepare our pork. It's a super simple setup today. We have a 2.5 kilo boneless pork shoulder, which I've already done a little bit of trimming on, and we're just going to be hitting that with 2 rubs today. The first of which is Angus & Oinks Sweet Bones and Butts, and the second is Angus & Oinks Jack and Cola. So here we have our pork shoulder trimmed up and ready to go. So it's just going to be a case of getting our Sweet Bones and Butts and our Jack and Cola on. So here we go. Now we'll want to get both sides of this. And again, I know it's called a rub, but we don't actually rub. So what we do is just pat it on and flip, and then we'll get the back of it as well. And again, you want to be really liberal with your rubs. Okay. There. Now they're big hunks of meat, so don't be afraid to get as much as you can on. So that is the Sweet Bones and Butt, and then we're just going to add a little bit of, as you can see, much coarser Jack and Cola onto it, just for an extra little bit of sweetness. There. And that looks really good. Now you can leave this for an hour or so just to let it sort of blend into the meat. I've got guests coming today, and this is what we're going to be having for dinner. So I'm going to crack on with this and get this onto the barbecue. So very much up to you, depending on how much time you have. Okay, so that is our pork shoulder ready to go on the Weber kettle. In terms of how we're going to be cooking this today, what I need you guys to do is set up for indirect cooking, and you can find the video on how to set up for indirect up there, so please hit that up if you haven't seen that before. One other point to note is that we're going to be using Weber smoking chips to help smoke this pork shoulder today. We're using a combination of beech and hickory, simply because that's what I had kicking around today. You'll get the mildness out of the beech, but a little bit more intensity from the hickory. So I think this will be a great mix of smoking chips that will work brilliantly with our rub and our meat. Okay, so here we have our setup for today. As ever, we've got our basket on our left hand side. I've got a couple of unlit coals in there, simply because what will happen is when I put the lit ones in, what they do is over the next hour or so they will start to light these coals, which will help then maintain the temperature of the barbecue for a longer period of time, meaning I don't have to lift the lid every kind of half hour just to check what's going on. I've got my water pan just with water in today, so let's just get on with putting our coals in. Okay. And what we'll do now is just let that come up to temperature. Okay, so our barbecue is now up to temperature. So as ever with any low and slow, we're looking at between 110 and 120 degrees Celsius. So that's where we are just now. So I'm happy with that. So it's time to get our pork on. Here we go. And simply a case of taking our pork shoulder and popping it over our water tray. Lastly, we'll be adding a handful of our combination of beech and hickory chips. So pop them there. And then it's simply a case of replacing the top. So what we'll do is we'll now prepare our spritz, which is the same spritz that we saw in the pork ribs video, which is a combination of apple juice and apple cider vinegar. But we're going to leave that probably for a good sort of 3 hours now and come back and see how it's doing. So we're now at the 3 hour mark and it's time to have a little spritz. And this is looking great. As we can see, the rub has now really started to take onto the meat and we're starting to see some of that fat render through. So that's giving us the little pools of moisture on the top of the pork here. So as I said earlier, it's the same spritz, mixture of apple cider vinegar and apple juice. It's just a case of popping that on there. Just keep it nice and moist. So we're now at a temperature of 63. Now the target temperature on, as it says on the Weber app, is 84. However, we are going to take it past that into the 90s. It's only when you start getting into the sort of 92, 94 range will it actually start to sort of pull apart. So we'll monitor that. We'll continue to monitor this as we go. But for now, that's looking really good. The coals have reduced down slightly, so I've just added some more unlit coals in. But pleasingly, even though we're at the 3 hour mark, I haven't had to touch this at all because I'd put those unlit coals on the bottom of the basket before adding my lit coals into it. So I'm really, really happy with that. I'll leave the wood chips out for just now. We've hit it twice with smoke. We'll maybe have a little look at it again in about an hour's time. So we're now 7 hours into this cook and I've just checked the temperatures and I'll put this on the screen. We're at 73 degrees, so a bit sort of about 7 degrees off where I would want to be, I think at this point. At 80, what I usually do is take the pork off, put it in a foil tray, put some apple juice or the rest of the spritz that we've used today into it, and then wrap it again and put that back in, and what that'll do is that'll look to really boost the temperature. So I'm going to pull that in now, as I say, a little bit earlier than I would normally do that, but I think given that I've got guests over, I want to try and make sure that we can eat as soon as possible. So what I'm going to do now is walk you guys through what I would do in terms of putting the pork in the tray and then putting it back onto the barbecue. So here is our pork shoulder. Put it off barbecue. It's got some great bark on it, so really pleased with that. I have tested the temperature with another probe, so we're definitely at 74 degrees centigrade. So what I'm going to do now is just show you what I do in terms of taking this to the next step, which is adding in my the rest of my spritz mix, which is about 400 mils. and then what we'll do is we'll wrap this in the rest of the tin foil and then get it back out on the barbecue. So very simply, we will add in the rest of our spritz mix like so, and then we will take a couple of sheets of foil and start to wrap this around. Like that. Get it as tight as you can. There, if you need more, then absolutely don't be afraid to put some on if you feel it's necessary. But that should be good for our purposes. So I'm going to pop this back on the barbecue and I'll update you shortly. I was really pleased at how this turned out in the end. We got a lovely bark on it thanks to the Angus and Oink rubs that I used, and because we took it into the mid-90s, the meat just fell apart, which was absolutely fantastic. So really happy with that. As I said in one of my earlier videos, every cook's a learning cook, and this one has been no different for me. I've kept a journal as I've gone along with this one. Mainly because I came across something which I hadn't really come across before with pork, which was we found a little bit of a stall in when we reached the temperature of around about sort of 65 degrees. A stall's nothing new to me. We usually come across them in briskets, but today with the pork shoulder of this size, we certainly came across one where the internal temperature of the meat didn't really rise very quickly at all during the sort of I think about 3 to sort of 5 hour mark. So that's something that I've taken a note of, and I'd absolutely encourage you guys to do the same as and when you're doing this type of cook. So I hope you liked that video today. If you did, please hit the like button. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button and hit that bell for future notifications. Please as well, leave me a comment. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, and potentially what you'd like to see in the future. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.